Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 226 of Kouryer podcast. Our today's guest is Mr. Jibril Sy. He's an illustrator and concept artist from Paris, France. And of course, before we go into the questions, let me quickly mention that in the for contact section of the captions, you can find the links to all his socials, like for commissions, prints, Gumroad, Twitter, you name it. Everything is there. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the first question where I ask everyone basically. Give us a little introduction on how we got into the world of visual arts and design. Basically, tell us your origin story if you know how you became an artist.
Sure. It's actually a story I like to tell because it's very typical. So basically, I wasn't always into art and design. Well, everybody as a kid always used to, draw here and there from watching anime and stuff. Me specifically, I got a lot of interest from playing video games. Especially, I would play, like adventure games, games that delve into like fantasy and themes like that. But it was never like really like an actual hobby until like a few years after when I started university, where I studied. My degree is in computer science, software engineering actually, and I was basically looking for a pastime, and I was trying many different things, video games. I was trying to like compose music. I was trying many different things, and basically one day, as I was just strolling around the city, I came across an art shop, like an art supplies shop, and I just entered it. Just why not? I was just walking to the city, and yeah, it was great. Like I loved the atmosphere of the shop. It was very big. Had a lot of different art supplies I've never seen before. So I just bought a bunch of them, like an actual bag full of like sketches, different types of crayons, erasers, and all that stuff. And yeah, I just started drawing every time when I was coming home from uni and experimenting with stuff. Around the same time, I also started playing games that many people that listening to this are probably familiar with, which is League of Legends, and it participated in fueling this interest in trying to draw things, trying to understand how you can come to paint something that looks like what I see on League and other games. So that was my introduction to this as a hobby. What introduced it to me as work, as freelance, which is what I do now, is basically COVID-19. Like for many people, it was kind of a break into the routine of life and work and all that stuff. And it gave me time to explore this hobby more. And actually, by that time, I had been drawing for some time now. I was getting a little bit of attention for commissions and stuff like that. So I started doing it as a freelance for a few months, or about 6 months, and tried the whole nine. So I did Upwork, met some people there. We came off of Upwork and they started becoming recurring clients. And this is kind of where I started taking it more seriously, started trying to network with other artists and trying to learn how to actually do this to like a professional level.
All right, and now speaking of doing this on a professional level, I was wondering, what is your main branch of design that you're focusing on right now, and tell us about your experience from the start of it until now.
Well, now, sure. So right now, my main experience when it comes to professional work is actually storyboarding, which is not so, what you might see on my portfolio. I haven't actually done much concept art professionally. I've done concept art as a freelancer, but I would say there's probably a little bit of a difference there. It's not the same workflow or the same subjects that you would see. I did do a little bit of concept art for a game that's unreleased right now, and I work with a few indie studios. But as far as my main experience is actually storyboarding. I started storyboarding on Upwork, where I got contacted by a few studios, and as I was working more and more with them, they gave me more work. Eventually, I was onboarded with their team, and my role was a little bit of a generalist, where my main task would be to storyboard, but I would also be asked to do illustrations, maybe for assets for 3D cinematic, or assets for like promotional art and things like that. So as of right now, I'm still kind of a generalist, not like completely a concept artist or completely an illustrator or completely a storyboarder. But my main experience, if today I was to apply for a position and I had to show what my main body of work is, it would actually be storyboarding.
All right, and now here's an interesting question. How does your design process usually go anytime you want to start working on a new project, like basically, or new piece, like basically, what does the structure of your pipeline look like? If you could describe it.
A pipeline, yeah, sure. Okay, so I think when it comes to anything that is concept art and illustration, and even storyboard to an extent, the first and most important, in my opinion, part is actually to get the inspiration and the references. So this is a step where I actually spend quite a lot of time on. Usually what I do is I basically have this database. It's not really a database, but basically this huge file of references from different movies I've seen, different shows, different books. And usually there's like some kind of concept or aesthetic in one of those films that is, to me, is like a source of inspiration. So this is always where I start, right? Start to basically, you could compare this to like if you wanted to, like write a paper, you would start with maybe like defining your subject and defining your terms. This is kind of that's what I do in my design process, is that I define the aesthetic that I want to produce. And I try to look for references of people that do that aesthetic very well to give me a direction as to how I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And it leads me to the second part, which is to actually start putting ideas on paper. And my priority in terms of what kind of things I look into those ideas is, for example, if I'm making a character, it's going to be something like overall aesthetic, then shapes. And then once I've done that, it's going to be stuff like materials, colors, and things like that. That would be my breakdown. And for illustration, it's a little bit different for illustration, but usually one of the things that I really like to define once I have my references is the narrative. What am I trying to basically sell in this image? What is the story that's going on in this illustration? And then how can I present that using stuff like perspective and lighting? And again, for the order in which I do things, it's going to be perspective, then it's going to be the composition, or actually composition perspective, and then it's going to be lighting, kind of lighting and stuff. That's usually how I go about things.
All right. And what was the first paycheck you got out of art? What was it for? Was it just from Upwork, or was it something else? Like, what basically the first money you made out of art?
Here's the money I made out of art. All right. So first, well, I like to make a difference between like money and real money, right? Like first actual money. I think it was $5 for an Instagram commission, and I thought at the time it was great. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know I could make $5 from drawing something. It was back when it was like 2018, but basically I was on Instagram, but I just treated it as like an online archive. Whenever I drew something, I would just put it on there just because why not? And eventually I started getting DMs, people wanting to pay me to do things for them. And the first thing I ever paid for was about $5 for like a drawing, like a random portrait, I think. My first actual contract, I would say, where I got paid like a significant by European standards amount of money, I would say, is it was definitely on Upwork. It was a big storyboarding project. So basically, this animation studio was looking to make like a league cinematic, right? Like a league fan art cinematic, kind of like as a portfolio for their studio. So it's not official Riot Games work, but it's a studio, independent studio, that wants to make a cinematic featuring the characters of League of Legends to basically make an ad for their studio and their brain of work. And what they needed from people on Upwork was someone that could storyboard their script for them so that they can then animate it. And I applied to that job, and it's actually very funny because at the time I had in my portfolio illustration only. I had no concept art, no storyboarding, just illustration. And I applied to them with no storyboarding examples, no portfolio, and I was just like, just let me try my hand at this, like give me a chance at this, and I'm pretty sure I can make like great work. Like I think I have the visual library and the basic understanding of what a storyboard is to be able to do this for you. And they were actually convinced. I was very surprised, but that convinced them, and they let me work on it. And we worked on this storyboard for 2 or 3 months. And by the end, I think I was paid something around 1,500 euros, if I'm not mistaken, something around that realm, that area. And that was my first experience with storyboarding. And it actually was the foundation for me to then use that storyboard I made for them and presented any other time that I wanted to get a storyboarding gig, and presented, yeah, I did this, I was paid this, this is what it looks like now, and yeah, this is how it started.
All right, awesome. So I think that's a really good lesson you people can get from this is to just, even if you're not qualified necessarily on paper for a job, just but if you know you can get yourself to a level that you can do it, just apply. Because the craziest thing is most people don't apply to the jobs that they have a resume for, let alone things
Yeah,
that that's kind of crazy.
yeah, sure.
And
Funny enough, I feel like sometimes, well, maybe just me, but I feel like you have the most audacity and guts when you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, I feel like today I've learned so much more in storyboarding that I'm like, that was actually pretty silly of me to think I could, carry this project. But it's like when you don't know what you don't know, you're actually more brave and you're actually like more willing to, like try
yeah,
things like that. Yeah. Funny how that works.
how long did it take to from start to finish to finish that project? How long did it take roughly?
I think it took like almost 3 months. There was a lot of panels to make. Fortunately for me, the storyboards they were looking for were not necessarily very complex. I think that's also part of why they wanted to give me a chance for this. They were also not really looking for a specific style, so that was also one less barrier for me to get that job. But they were looking for a lot of scenes and a lot of like angles. Oh, can you do this other way? Can you change the lighting on this? So overall, it took about 2 or 3 months for I forgot how many panels, but well over 100.
All right, awesome, man. And but I mean, it was kind of insane because as you said, I didn't see any storyboard examples on your portfolio. I mean, I think you should upload some if
I
they're not
should, yeah.
NDA.
I actually should, yeah. This is one of the issues of NDA is that pretty much all the pretty much all the storyboarding work I've done is NDA. Usually, when I use it to apply to something else, I actually ask the other employer if I can just use a sample from this and send it to another person for this like specific gig. But I haven't been able yet to actually put it in my portfolio, which is also it comes also in play with something else, which is that although my main experience is storyboarding, I'm trying to move more into concept art. This is why if you saw my portfolio from like maybe like a year ago, it was
Yeah.
way more diverse and way more generalist. You would see illustrations, you would see some storyboarding, you would see concept art, you're seeing a lot of things. Lately, I've pretty much stripped anything that's not relevant to what I want to gear my portfolio towards, to only leave a little bit of illustration and a little bit of concept art. And that's what I'm going to do moving forward.
Awesome, man. And speaking of concept art and everything we talked about, um, I want to say to you that I'm really sorry that you had to start playing League of Legends. Like I know that it's such a tragedy. I mean, like it's a tragedy in everyone's life who comes upon this game and basically
Yeah.
lose a part of their soul in the process.
Yeah. So many
And
hours.
so yeah, I mean, speaking of that, when did you start playing?
I started playing in season one. However,
Wow.
I was not actually not season one. Not wait, no, that's not correct. End of season two, early season three. However, I wasn't a very consistent player. I didn't like it that much. I would play basically when my friends wanted to play, and I would play maybe a couple of games a week. I started really playing it consistently. I would say around season five, and I stopped playing around season eight. So it didn't take
Yeah.
too much away from my life.
And hopefully you're still not playing.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I've had my dose of League of Legends. Yeah, still love the IP, but the game is just way too much time consuming nowadays.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just saying all this as a joke. I mean, it's a good game, but if you have a team full of friends, that's it. Solo
Mhm.
queue, no, just don't. Go play
Yeah, yeah.
Minecraft or something. Minecraft is a great
Okay,
game for
yeah. Maybe
this
not the best
solo.
use of your time. Yeah, true.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but the art is amazing. Like I've seen like your Children of Zon piece. I think on your art session that was really good. On your Instagram
Hmm.
was as well,
Oh, thank you.
and yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, in that sort of universe because now with Riot Force, there's a lot of indie games being developed, within the universe of League.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean the future looks fun. There's Project L coming, the fighting game
Right.
with Riot, and yeah. Oh, who did you use to main in League? Who are your mains?
Who are my mains? All right, so I've had a lot of mains to be honest. I don't know if I have one main guy that I really like more than everyone else, but when I first started League, obviously my main was that because how could you not main that? He's just so cool, right? His ultimate Bridgie just sold me, and also it just happened to be that I started League around the time where Faker did that famous play where he had 1 HP left and he actually outplay someone. I was like, dude, if a champion can do this, this is a champion I want to main. So started with that. Obviously, I sucked terribly, and I started playing more ADC, and I wanted to play an ADC. I was like nervous. That was like like sweaty. I don't know like the correct term for this, but basically like high intensity type of ADC.
Yeah, it's called try hard, I think. Yeah, because I have the
Hard.
same type of ADC as well.
Yeah, right. Basically, you want
Like,
to be always on your tiptoes, right? You don't want like a late game. Basically, I didn't want to play in late game ADC. I wanted to be powerful right at the start. So I started playing Lucian a lot. And then towards the end of my league career, I was playing Draven. Yeah, Draven was the one I was actually had the most success with.
all right, awesome.
Yeah. What about you, though? Did
And
you? Because you sound like you played a fair bit of Vayne. I don't know if you strike me as a Vayne player for some reason.
no, Vayne is actually no, not honestly.
Oh, okay.
So I play something worse actually. Um, like
Right.
like I have a lot of mains as well, but my mains in ADC are Tristana and Ziggs.
Mm-hmm.
And on top, I usually play top or just bot ADC. On top,
Mm-hmm.
my biggest main in the whole game is Nasus, and the other one, which is
Mm-hmm.
a stark contrast to Nasus, is Teemo. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I said something worse
Interesting.
than Wayne, and yeah, Teemo is worse.
Interesting. Yeah, Tristan is definitely a solid one. It was actually my second highest win rate. Although I don't play her that much. But yeah, she's a very solid ADC. Very scary to
Yeah,
play against a
because
good Tristana.
Yeah, because our W is literally one of the. It's really similar to one of the abilities from Techies, a character from Dota 2, which was my main in Dota 2, and they're kind
Interesting.
of the same. And that's what really sold me on Tristana first. Or I was like, it has bombs like Techies, it does jump like Techies. Okay, I'm gonna main Tristana. And the
Yeah,
reason I play
makes
Six
sense.
is the same as well because bombs. I don't know, for some reason I in every single game that now that I think about it, I really love bomb characters like Raze in Valorant, Junkrat in Overwatch. What's
Right.
wrong with me? I don't know.
Interesting.
Obviously,
Yeah. I mean, they're fun characters. There's something
yeah,
satisfying about the bouncing mechanic, like just you just love something.
exactly.
It's just I see what you mean. I see the appeal of like bomb characters.
Yeah. And the next thing I'm going to mention is, or ask you is, who are some of your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most?
Oh man, the list is very long. Also, I'm bad with names, but if I could, like pick a few, I would say one artist which I really like his rendering and his use of composition is Ming Shen. Shen, I think that's what his name is. Um, he used to be at Riot. Nowadays, I think he's at West Studios. But I think his art is really great. I really like his like personal characters, his series he had with the goblins and stuff. I don't know if you've seen it, but he's definitely one of my favs. Who else? There is this Chinese illustrator. His name is kind of like escaping me right now. Maybe I can find it. Mars Station Lights. It's probably not very far down, but he's also a former league illustrator. I think he's a freelancer actually. But yeah, there's a lot of names that just forget right now, but I absolutely look up to when it comes to their ability to like render. Fairly enough, I don't know why I'm talking about rendering when I'm supposed to be a concept artist, but rendering is just it's just something that is like really like interesting me right now. It's something I really want to understand. When it comes to design ability, like pure design ability, there's this concept artist, which again I'm forgetting the name of, but let me just quickly check. I think his name is Johnson Ting, something like that. But he's really good at making knight characters. He's really good at that, and I really like the way he mix and matches things that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see in a knight design. Um, Marko Djurjevic. Not sure if I say this name correctly. I probably butchered it actually. But he's a founder of a studio called Six More Vodka, and he's also like a great artist, great rendering, great composition, great anatomy. And what I look up most in Marco is actually his kind of the way he came into the art industry. Find that very relatable. You know, the way he basically he had this vision and he just went ahead and fulfilled it, right? And it's always very inspirational to see people just go after their dreams and basically not give up, you know, regardless of how tough it can be in the beginning.
All right, and let's see. What are you working on right now that you can tell us about? What kind of project is it? I mean, of course, there's always NDAs involved, but if that's not the case, what are you doing right now?
So right now I'm working on yet another storyboarding project. Unfortunately, I can't give you too much details around it, but it's basically going to be for a studio that's actually doing animation. If they're doing Japanese style animation, like Eastern animation, which is a big challenge for me because I'm not an animator. I don't have an animator background. Thankfully, they have animators, and what they need from me is just a guiding light for the animators, right? They need someone to lay out the scenes. It's very interesting because it's pushing me into different ways to different camera angles, different views of proportions, foreshortening, things like that I don't necessarily do much in my other field of work. So that's definitely something that I'm working on. Another project that I'm working on that people might not necessarily expect me is a game where I'm making backgrounds for them. Yet another thing that's not in my portfolio, but I'm actually making backgrounds for an indie game called Baron. Uh, and what they need from me is keyframes. So basically, keyframes are these large paintings, right, that are meant to sell the mood of a specific area in the game. So, for example, one of the scenes, okay, and I can talk about this. I can't show it, but I can talk about it. As it's kind of like this apocalyptic world, and one of the scenes I had to paint for a keyframe was the epicenter of wherever the catastrophe that happens were, right? And the purpose of that is to basically have this visual brick that you can lay down and you can take this and say, okay, let's expand on this. Is this the correct mood? Is this correct? Like, does it match what we want to make for a game as a universe? And if it matches, then we can take this, give it to a concept artist, and have it expand on this base, right? So this is one of the projects I have in the background right now. It's not on my station yet. Really, hopefully it's going to come out of NDA in less than a year, if I remember correctly. And I think it's going to be interesting for people to see this background work that I've been doing. And as far as character concept art, I'm actually working on my own IP, which is not ready yet to hit the art station, but I'm working on a roster of characters. Lately, I've done the art station challenge. It's one of my latest posts, and to kind of like keep the ball rolling, I'm trying to design my own roster, which is an IP I've been thinking about for years now, and I'm just now pulling the trigger since now I feel like I'm starting to have enough knowledge to actually execute it to a level where I think I would be satisfied with it.
Yeah, I think that your profile picture is the main character, right? The guy, the boy with the red arm thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's actually a girl.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
no worries. People always, think it's a guy, which is understandable because she doesn't really have any obvious womanly features. Um, which was like it was a little bit intentional on my part. I wanted to kind of keep it a little bit ambiguous and basically have these tough characters, and I didn't want to make her too obviously female in a way where it would hurt the design.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty interesting. And all right. Now we talked about a lot of art stuff, by now. And what area beside the area you're working on right now, which is of course in the realms of art and design and background stuff like that, would you like to explore and learn in the future, like any non-art related stuff or hobbies you might have?
Wait, sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't hear the end of your sentence.
Like any non-art related hobbies or ambitions that you might have that you want to pursue or you have, anything non-art related going on?
That are related? Okay, so one thing that I'm really passionate about is fighting games. And one of the projects that I've always had, even before I started my studies, in software engineering, art before I started art was to kind of like develop my own fighting game or work in a fighting game. And this is kind of like a side project I've been, like doing. I'm building up on the background, and I'm learning a lot as far as game design, and as far as how to operate, like engines. Because the first time I did it, I actually did a small prototype, which you could find if you dig. If you find my real name and you find my GitHub, you could find this like small prototype I did. But I did this first prototype. It gave me a taste of what would be needed to actually make this an actual like full-fledged project that's playable, right? And now I'm in the process of learning, the tools to put this to like a production level. So I'm starting to look into C# and things like that. So that's one of the biggest like non-art related projects I have going on. Also, I would love to make the art. Realistically, it's probably not going to be me making the art because we just take too much time, right? Can't do the coding and the art, right? It would take decades. But yeah, it's one of the projects I have in the background.
All right. And well, last but not least, we've reached the final question of the podcast, which is called the time capsule. And all right, let me explain actually what it means. Imagine a scenario where you only had a few minutes of time available, and in that few minutes, you have the chance to record anything that's on your mind, and these are going to be your last words you're ever going to save, and they're going to stay forever. So anyone in the future can listen to it. So what in that situation, what would you say from yourself, a human, to another human being that might listen to it in the future or this podcast when episode gets uploaded?
Mm, all right, that's a great question. Well, I think one safe piece of advice I can say that's gonna still work in 100 years and 200 years or in 80 parts of the world is to basically, it might sound very cliche, but as I said, at first, at one time in my life, I was just looking for hobbies, right? I was looking, okay, I'm just testing what sticks, right? And I think what advice I would give to basically anyone is to kind of like experience, go out there and experience different things, experience as many things as you can, and try to kind of like find your passion and find, if not a passion, something that kind of like intrigues you, something that you can spend time into. Hopefully, something productive. So not League of Legends, but unless you want to go pro, right? But basically something that can be a vessel for you to wake up in the morning and feel like you're motivated to understand something deeper and to learn, right? I think it's very important. Everyone should have something they want to learn and want to get really good at and really, like deep into.
All right, sorry, I was just typing those stuff quickly, because usually
That
during
works.
the podcast I always write this stuff, as we go.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if you check the Instagram page of the podcast, like the third post of every guest is their answer to this question.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just makes my life a bit easier if I just type on the
Right.
fly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming by. By the way, to anyone who's listening, in the Gumroad link, you can find free Procreate brushes if you're interested. If you're seeing the style of illustration that you're seeing up here on YouTube, you can go check out the Procreate brushes there. And just wanted to mention that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, thank you so much for coming by and taking your time for
Of
coming
course,
on
man.
this
Thanks for
episode.
inviting me.
My pleasure, man. And thank you to anyone who tuned in and listened to this episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. As always, leave a comment down below if you had any suggestions or comments or critiques. And just a second, I need to sneeze. Oof.
Bless
I'm
you.
better. Thanks. And yeah, basically send me a message if you need any comments or suggestions or critiques. And also you can contact him on Twitter and Instagram as well. And the links are down in the description below. And with that being said, take care everyone and stay safe. Bye
All right,
bye.
guys. See ya.